How's it going, everyone? I just got done welding up some Rocky Bottom, is what we call them, 330 stands. And these ones I'll take with me to our little rendezvous we're having. Well, it's not little, it's a pretty big event, but other than the display one, I leave that flat. The tab, if you've seen in my other videos, that the trap goes under. I leave that flat now because you just go ahead and bend that up to what works for your 330. Some, like the Dukes, are bent a little lower than, they're bent up a little higher to allow the Duke than it does the Belial, and so on. Different brand 330s, that gap when they're set's a little different. So they're really easy to bend up too. Just take a claw hammer and bend them up. I don't use 1/4 inch on them anymore. I use 3/16. And even my chain deflectors on the drags will be 3/16 because it's more than enough. That's just stabilizing a trap, and the other one's just keeping the chain from wrapping around it. So save not much weight, but a little bit of weight. Nothing you're going to notice different from than a 1/4 inch piece, but I did switch them to rebar though, because one, rebar also has a little bit more traction with it being ribbed like that on some rocky bottom ground and that. And also the rebar is a little bit lighter than your typical round stock piece, believe it or not. And just to make it a little more cost effective for making them. But that's what I was just doing there. And then figured I'd turn the camera back on because I'm taking a little bit of a water break, and it's fairly hot in here today in the shop. When it's 80 outside, it's about 100 in here. It doesn't seem like it on video, obviously, but in a giant microwave, and everything runs off 480 and 240, so it gets quite warm in here. But I wanted to talk about some hammers here. I got 2 hammers. I guess you can't be, the hammer strapline product without some hammers, obviously. But the reason that I never really showed diggers too much is there's so many of them out there, and they all work. You got your Groundhog, and your Sod Buster, and there's a bunch of different ones out there. There's real cheap ones, there's real expensive ones, and some other fabricators also make them out of these. So I also decided to go ahead and switch to this one. It's a more expensive hammer, but it's a solid steel hammer, and so you're pretty much, it costs a heck of a lot more, but it's going to last a heck of a lot longer. The most you'd ever have to do to this hammer is maybe sharpen up your digging end. And they come in 2 lengths and 2 sizes. Like this is a 4-pounder, and I think it's an 18-inch handle. Measure here real quick. I think the whole thing altogether, the total length of it's 16. So I was wrong there, it's not 18. The total length of it's 16. But it is a heavy hammer, a really heavy one. I like it, I prefer it. But I prefer the straight edge also. I don't like that angle edge digger. Because when you're swinging, you're already coming down at an angle. You're not swinging straight in, like that. I mean, you can go ahead and go like this, to go straight in and that, but you're already coming in at an angle with your swing and kind of like dragging the dirt back to you. So I like the straight edge because it is actually, taking the full advantage of your angle already at your swing, if that makes sense. With the angled one, I always notice you're more or less chipping, because by the time you make your full swing, you're even more of an angle, you know, coming into it. So you're more or less just chipping some sod out of your way. This is chunked in at an angle, you know, kind of like that by the time you're at the end of your swing, and then you pull back a bigger wad at once. I mean, that's just, nothing wrong with the angled one. Thousands and thousands of trappers use them, and they work great. I've used them, and they work great for me. And I prefer a straight edge, because one, I can also, like my square jaw traps, and I can just go like this and dig out a perfectly square bed, not a bowl, just a perfect square clod that I want to pull out. And then you've seen in any of my other videos how I bed my trap. I do like the pinch method, and like pinch my trap in by beating the surrounding sod around it, and I fill that void up with some good dried peat moss, and that to take some weather for a while, and then just top dress with dirt. But that's why I prefer the straight edge one. And this is a hammer that will literally wear you out going to this size of a hammer. I mean, it will. This is definitely not a long hammer by any means. If you're planning on putting in 40-50 sets out on the first day, this hammer has you about down to where you don't want to put another 10 in tomorrow. I'm used to it. My muscle memory of swinging it is used to it, and just my overall strength in my arms and that are used to swinging this hammer, so it doesn't bother me. But to just start off right out the bat, little FYI, this is gonna wear you out on the first day if you're used to like a 2.5 pound sod buster. This definitely takes some building up to being able to use all day long, but I like it just because of the advantage of driving in stakes in the really rocky ground, and just chipping around at the rocky ground. I really ain't gotta rely too much on a hard swing, as much as I do is just, the weight of the hammer and kind of like raking the rocks out of my way with it. So that's the 4-pound E-swing ones, solid steel. Like I said, lasts forever. Some of the guys out there, they're putting AR steel on them, and that'll last, and definitely will last a heck of a lot longer. But the 1/4-inch flat works well for me, and I just take a file and just shape up my edge every now and then. And if you're bending the 1/4 inch in that, you're not supposed to be trying to dig a trap bed in it. Then if you're possibly bending that 1/4 inch, I've used mine to pry up on some earth anchors, not what they're intended for, but I've done it, and they hold up just well like that. Other than the edge will dull out if you're chipping around in rocks a lot. But pretty much that's what it comes down to, is how the user uses it. You can take anything and just literally destroy it by, misuse of it. And that's even like driving in earth anchors. I've, had people say, oh, I bent my I bent my driver on the first one and everything, and it's nothing to, I mean no harm by saying it. And I know people who can drive a 16 penny nail and 3 licks without bending it. And I know people who can't drive a 16 penny nail and 20 licks without just folding it over on the first 2. And then also what you're trying to, use, what kind of ground you're using your equipment in. But we won't get into that too much. That's a whole other thing. But that's the 4-pounder one. It's a little over 4 pounds by the time you put the blade on it. And then this one's a 3-pounder. And it's real short. And honestly, I've never used this, and I just made it. right now. It's 11 inches. And it's actually a really nice, I mean, this is actually really comfortable and balanced in the hand here, just being this short. And you could easily drive in your earth anchors and everything with this short little hammer. I'm definitely going to give this a heck of a try. One, it's going to fit in the bag a lot easier than this one. I mean, look at the difference. Even the it's like 3 pounds by the time you put the blade on it, but the 2.5 pound model with the you know, that plastic handle style, they're all about that long. And then once you got that digging blade on there, it's you know, kind of a bulky item in the trap bag. This little guy though, I mean, that almost, my sifters are 11 by 7, and that right there is 11 inches. So that's a heck of a little hammer. I actually liked it. Once I milled out the back and put that blade on there and welded it up and started messing with it, I mean, you got a nice little hammer here. I mean, you can, you know, it's kind of only putting the weight into the bottom of your forearm here when swinging it, where this puts the whole weight. And I can tell you just from personal experience using this on the trap line, this is the whole forearm and down into the wrist that starts taking, because it's, when your wrist goes like that, it's also holding the weight and the length of this up. So the weight's further out, and it wears out this whole top part of the arm after a while. Like I said though, after you use it a few times, you know, you get built up to using it. But this little guy, I don't think it could wear you out. You could literally, and it's still, it's like 3.5 pounds almost. It could, you know, I mean, it could definitely be a little game changer. I've seen some other fabricators out there, and they have them made. I never purchased one to try it out, so I ended up picking up a few of these. The only issue with these is they are very, very expensive. Just this little one alone, before even doing the modifications to it. I know you can get them a little cheaper online, but I also, where I get them from, I get a discount anyways. But just the hammer, just this one, was, we'll say about 30 bucks. It was $29.98 for just that hammer. And then this one's $49.98. And if you buy a bunch of them, you get a better deal. But as the typical trapper that would make this themselves in their fur shed or their garage or whatever, you know, want to make their own hammer, you're obviously not going to get that discounted rate of buying when you buy a bunch of them, because you only buy, you know, 10 or 12 of these. And it is definitely an expensive piece of equipment to add to the trapper's bag. But with that, you know, because I hear it sometimes, because some of my stuff that I make, and you see, all of it's done just by me and by my hands only, and a lot of manual work into it too. I don't, you know, even with the capabilities of the machine shop and that, I take pride in doing it by hand and myself, and cutting it, and, you know, just doing it that way. But I've had some people ask me, you know, well, how much for this? And I tell them the price and how much it is to ship it. And they're like, oh, you can buy a dozen traps for that. And you can, for a lot of things. But that's just, you know, that's just the way it is. I'm not going to try to justify it or nothing, but honestly, like a hammer like this, if someone were to go out and make a bunch of these and try to sell them at like their trapline product store or whatever, even online and that, you know, you got right off the bat, you got $30 into buying the hammer. Or say you buy 12 of them, you can get them down to, you know, if you could talk them down into 25 bucks a piece, you know, you still, right there, that's how much a sodbuster hammer costs, already done and made, you know, it's cheaper. But is it gonna last as long as this hammer that, you know, I myself, I would probably put the price of, you know, this little one close to the $40 mark. You know, you got to work in, you know, milling this down, and then milling this cutting edge into it, and then welding it. You know, so I would definitely put a hammer like this into the $40 range right off the bat. And one like this, I mean, you're talking probably $50, $60 range, you know. But, you know, that's a US made product. If that's something people care about, you know, that's an advantage of it. And one, this brand of hammers is phenomenal. Anything they make is top quality. So right off the bat, you're buying something top quality. Even before the modification was made to it to work out on the trap line. I remember when I first started out, I used one of their, it's a Mason hammer. And that thing worked out great. I just didn't like it, you know, because then I was carrying a sledge to drive my anchors in, and then using the Mason hammer to dig out the bed net with. So it was nice. Just the one I've used for years now is the plastic handle one. It's lasted a few seasons, but they're even still a little pricier than, you know, your typical trapline hammer you see out there. But yeah, they are definitely way more expensive, but they will last a heck of a lot longer. So to me, that's worth that extra cost. I care about quality in something more than I care what I'm saving when buying something. I would much rather be paying attention to the quality in that than paying attention to whatever the price tag is on it. By all means, save money where you can save money. I 100% agree with that. But as far as something that literally takes the most abuse, if you think of what takes the most abuse besides your trap on the trap line, it is your digging tool. I mean, nothing starts without it. So as far as the set construction out there is, you know, your digging tool. And it's what's going to drive in your anchor, you know. So your driver is taking a heck of a lot of abuse, but all the abuse starts with, you know, good quality digger and hammer. And so I figured I'd just take a moment here and just express some of my feelings towards a hammer. And am I saying go out and buy something like this? Absolutely not. You can get by totally, because thousands of trappers have already done it, get by with everything that's already out there. There is a few of us fabricators out there that do make them out of these, and some other solid steel style diggers and that. And you know, I think that's awesome. You know, I seen this on many years ago, this exact one. I seen this on a forum, someone making them and everything, and you know, I actually didn't make my own. I bought it and used it, and it was awesome. And then I started making some out of it's like the plastic compound handle or whatever, the S-Wing ones. I made my own to use because it was a little bit lighter, and everything else I use is pretty heavy, so if I can save a little bit of weight on the hammer part, then I decided to do that. But I will be going back to the big solid steel one, just because it's going to last forever. But I am honestly, probably, I'm going to give this size a good try this season, and that because I'm liking the weight. I mean, it's just nice, and it's got weight, but it's not got a lot of it. And the more I handle it in my hand here, I can just tell the difference of where it's going to strain my arm the most. and it's only going to be down in this portion of my arm, like I already pointed out. Compared to even just holding this up, the difference in that, you can feel the strain in your arm going clean up in here, holding this side up. Compared to this one, you only feel it, like right here is all I feel using this hammer. And for how short it is, I would not think it would have a good balance, but it does. It has an absolute great balance as far as holding it back on the handle here. Now you can't really double hand it, but again, you're now trying to drive something into the ground, probably where to be using a drag or something, I guess, and instead of having to use something like this as a double hand to drive in your anchor. So I just figured I would share that. Like I said, I was going to take a little break from the heat now. I got the fan behind me blowing and cooling me off. So, but there's two options out there on, you know, nice hammers. You can go pick these up pretty much anywhere. Weld yourself a good digging blade on the back of it. I know people use leaf springs, or like I mentioned before, AR steel. You know, you don't need to mill this back off of it. You can just weld it straight onto the top. It'll work just fine. It's a digger and a hammer that drives stuff into the ground. But there's also a few of us out there that make them too and sell them, and that too. But that's both of them right there. I figured we haven't really done a review or nothing, or even shown a hammer on my channel here, and it is called the Hammer Strapline product. So someday I'll explain where I got that nickname from. It absolutely has nothing to do with trapping, honestly, but maybe I'll do that in another video, explain how I ended up getting that little nickname. I've had it for over, going on almost 20 years now, but figured I'd just share two hammer options out there to all of you. Thanks for watching. Or actually, here, before I go, if you're ever wondering where I get my cool hats, or you've seen in some of my other videos, some of my shirts, go check out my buddy's, he got a new website up now, tstrapline.com, www.tstrapline.com. Go over there, check out, he has a ton of awesome shirts and hats, and he also has lure, and his lure works phenomenal. You've seen in my other videos of me catching coyotes with it. Go check out his new website. It's very easy to use, and he has a ton of stuff on there, and I'm sure he would appreciate it if you'd go over there and, you know, order a few things from him. He's a real good friend of mine, and his shirts and hats, they're all pretty awesome. And as far as, like, you know, trapline clothing, there's not really too many options out there other than, you know, you're buying a shirt with a brand name on it, but his is also mixed up a little bit there. So go check him out, and until next time.